We start this hour in the Middle East, and President Donald Trump says a ceasefire deal in Gaza could be close, following back-to-back meetings with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump also hinted at recent high-level talks involving US, Israeli and Qatari officials. As negotiations intensify, the White House signals optimism that a hostage and ceasefire agreement may be reached soon. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he and President Trump share a common goal to free hostages and end Hamas rule in Gaza. Speaking after their second meeting, Netanyahu said both leaders want a deal, but not at any cost. He emphasised full coordination, not coercion. Trump's envoy says only one major issue remains in ceasefire talks. Netanyahu also rejected claims of forced Palestinian removal, saying it's about choice, not displacement. Here is what the Israeli president had to say.
I completed a second meeting with President Trump. I want to inform you something that will shock the various reports that come out. President Trump and I have a common goal. I want to achieve the release of our hostages. We want to end Hamas rule in Gaza. We want to make sure that Gaza does not pose a threat to Israel anymore.
Well, of course, the situation in Gaza continues to be a talking point across the globe, with geopolitical conversations taking place. Joining us to discuss them is Jordan Cope, a Middle East expert who's joining us from Erfurt in Germany. Jordan, thank you as always for being here. Let's look at this US-Israeli cooperation as work towards a ceasefire deal continues. How important is it that the US and Israel are aligned in putting pressure on a potential ceasefire deal?
It's very important that Israel ultimately agrees at the end of the day. This is an agreement that will be critical for Israel's future security. It's also important to note that over the many years, Hamas has violated every ceasefire that has ever existed. So Israel will know that if Hamas tends to stay in power, it will be a serious, significant security concern for Israel in the future, and one that Israel will struggle to accept. We have had so many close calls over the past many months in terms of being so close to forging and finalizing ceasefire agreements, but the same problem remains, which is there are 50 hostages that remain in the Gaza Strip, half of whom are believed to be dead. And Israel ultimately knows just how difficult fighting wars in the Gaza Strip can be. And it remains crucial for Israel to be able to secure the release of all of those hostages, to bring them back home, to ensure that Hamas is not in power, given that Hamas has committed itself to committing future October 7th attacks again and again. Israel ultimately knows that this ceasefire could be perhaps one of the last if the US pressures it to stop any future fighting. And so for the sake of its citizens, whom it is tasked to protect, making sure that it gets every hostage home will surely remain a key provision of any future ceasefire agreement.
Yes, Jordan, stay with us. Let's look at those talks that are ongoing. Hamas